Hello everyone, it's Pastor Dave, and welcome to our third video on the intersection between faith and suicide. Suicide is a difficult subject to discuss, in part because the world has created a stigma around it. And unfortunately, churches have often contributed to that stigma with certain theological outlooks or claims that they have made. Today, we want to take a look at some of those claims and ask if there aren't better ways to consider these things so that we can become more compassionate and more supportive and more faithful as we consider the issue of suicide. Now, we don't need to go through all the ways that churches have tried to deal with suicide throughout history, being buried in different cemeteries and so on. Let's just say for our purposes that suicide in the church has often been considered the big no-no, the unforgivable sin. God doesn't love or save us because of our rightness or because of our perfect choices. Instead, God loves us as a parent does, fully knowing our imperfections and loving us anyway. And it is that love of God that makes us right and righteous, not any choice of our own. And when God sees one of God's children in need, God does not abandon them. That is true for you and me every day. It is even more true for those who feel keenly alone because of depression or other suicidal thoughts. And yes, even when we lose someone to suicide, we know that the God of compassion and love has not left them, but instead cradles them in his arms and loves them. The truth is, there's no brokenness on this earth or anywhere in the universe that is too big for God's love to fill and redeem. When Jesus Christ died on the cross, he died to redeem death for those broken by death. Not some deaths and not others, but to redeem all death and turn it into life. If we hope that that is true for you and for me, we also hope that that is true for those who have lost their lives tragically to suicide, whom we love and whom God also loves. Another thing that often trips us up when we consider these issues is to claim that God has a plan for each of us. Now, a lot of people think that God moves us around like pieces on a chessboard, preordaining everything that's going to happen to us. And so logically, if someone loses their life to suicide, that must have been God's will for them. Nothing could be further from the truth. That's not actually the way God's plan works. God does say that he has a destiny for us. But it is not the kind of destiny that depends on every step we take here being perfect. Rather, God says to us, even though you live in a broken world, even though your choices are not going to be perfect, my will is to love you. My will is to lift and redeem you. And every step you take, even though it's not necessarily going to be right, you are going to find me there, because my plan is to never abandon you and to never stop loving you and to carry you through to the end of your life and beyond so that you and I can be together in peace forever. As people of faith, one of the things that we're called to do is re-examine our language and the theological claims we make, asking whether they really are faithful if we are to accompany people who have lost their lives to suicide or the people who love and mourn them. When we say things casually like, God has a plan for everybody, or suicide is the unforgivable sin, or even you have to ask for forgiveness before God will give it to you, we are actually separating God from people that God loves and people who need that love very much. Those are not faithful stances, and I don't think that we are called to justify our own beliefs at the expense of those who are suffering. So if we want to create a more supportive community of faith, one of the things that each of us should ask ourselves is what I'm saying faithful, compassionate, and will it hold up if it were said to someone whose loved one had committed suicide? And if the answer is no, if it wouldn't be compassionate and loving in that situation, then maybe we need to rethink how we think about God and faith.